Well, baseball just keeps on coming. In the previous video, I looked at Namco's World Stadium, which was just a port of their Family Stadium. But here is the PC Engine's premier baseball game, Power League. There are 6 Power League games on the PC Engine, comprising about half of all baseball games for the platform. Power League is Hudson's own baseball franchise. Every major game publisher in Japan had to have one. Of course, Power League plays just like Family Stadium, because that's the only way to play baseball for the time being. You have your choices of a versus match, a single game against the computer, a pennant race where you play against all the teams, or to just watch the computer play itself. There's also an edit mode, but it's not as in-depth as you might hope. You can look at the composition of each team, and then they have some farm prospects that you can swap in. This is also where you can change your batting order. For teams, you have your pick of any team in the Japanese leagues. Of course, they didn't have the license for those teams, so Hudson went with the classic method of using the first letter of the team name and then giving them something just slightly different. Now, let's play ball. And the obvious thing in Power League is that Hudson knew how to use the power of the PC Engine. You've got big, human-proportioned sprites in the at-bats, and some cute additional effects like the ball flying up to the camera after you hit it. The controls are the same as Famista. You hit button 1 to swing, you also use that button to throw a pitch, and button 1 in a direction will throw to that base when you're fielding. Button 2 in a direction will advance toward that base, while button 1 in a direction will retreat toward that base. The exact same control scheme that pretty much every baseball game between 1986 and 1995 used. When it comes to pitching, I noticed that the ball has a wicked curve. They can get halfway to home plate and then swing to the complete opposite side. It makes it pretty difficult to hit anything that the computer throws, because by the time you know where it's going, you're pretty much out of time to swing. Power League had an interesting method for dealing with the fielding problem. In these early games, you're controlling all of the players on the field at once when you're on defense. And that means maneuvering your outfielders into position long before they're on screen. Power League adds a little radar map when you're fielding. It took me a couple of innings to get used to it, but once I did, I was able to field pretty well. In my first game, the computer didn't score a single run after the second inning. There's a couple of other unique features here. If you have a runner on base while you're batting, you can gradually lead them off the base. Different players have different running speeds, so you can get away with a lot more distance with certain ones than others. Every player is also rated on throwing speed for when you're making those defensive plays. There's a lot of details that give the players distinctive characteristics in Power League. In a rather unusual turn, Power League was the game Hudson chose for their Caravan competition in 1988. This was a yearly event that Hudson held every summer, where they toured Japan showing off their latest games and holding a competition for a different game every year. Usually it was shoot-'em-ups, but in 1988 it was Power League. This was the only game in the Caravan series where players went head-to-head, and that choice wound up being a bit unpopular. Even before the tour was over, Hudson was already promising to go back to shooters next time. Power League proved to be fairly popular in 1988, and while it still has its fans, it seems like most of them prefer later games in the series. There will be some interface and design changes between the first and second one, but I'll talk about that when I get there. My personal preference between Power League and World Stadium is Power League. Even though Power League clearly borrows from Namco's games, I think the improvements are worthwhile enough to make Power League a better choice. And in terms of 1980s baseball games, Power League turns out pretty well. I don't think I'd quite flag it as the best, but I think it would fit easily in the top 5. If you wanted to play baseball on a classic console, you could do a lot worse than this.